good morning again, folks. And it's 10:30, and we have a group with us from the Vermont Dairy Producers Alliance, Amanda St. Pierre, Bill Rowell, and Shannon Hill. So welcome, and we don't have any set way of you folks presenting. We have Amanda first on the list, but you can divide that up however you would like. But it's great to see you folks, and welcome.
Thank you.
I think you all know the committee members. Shannon, we could run around quick for you if you'd like to see who we are. No, you're all good. Well, go ahead, Amanda, and we won't lose any time.
Thank you, Senator Starr, and thank you to the committee for having us back. Welcome to a new year, 2022. And just by us all being back, I think is a badge of honor. We survived. And here we are for another year. We appreciate, certainly I just want to start off by thanking the committee for their work that they do, even on the off season, the calls that you are willing to take and the interaction that you have, I think is a testament to how strongly you believe in agriculture in Vermont and the importance for all Vermonters that agriculture is strong and vibrant and sustainable. So that's really what I wanted to just talk about as a recap maybe, and Bill and Shannon will take over from there, but kind of just giving an update on what Vermont Dairy Producer Alliance members have been working on. So first of all, we have been an organization since 2016. So we're entering our 6th year. We work with a great lobbying team, Schuldeis and Associates, led by Heather Schuldeis, and you'll see their people on your calls or in person, hopefully someday. Tess Canada and Emma Schuldeis, as well as Heather. And they've been great to assist us in this process of learning how the legislative process works and allowing us to have conversations like we're having today. So that being said, our members are a very dynamic group of dairy farmers. We're focused on dairy farming. That's our base of membership, and we want to represent our industry in the truest fashion as possible. So if I can just take a few minutes and kind of just recap what our members have been working on. So our members have been taking classes, lots of classes. We take classes from UVM Extension. We take classes from Pro Dairy out of Cornell. We take classes out of UVM. We take classes from our Farm Credit and our Yankee Farm Credit banking institutions. We take classes on a Dairy Girl Network. We've got a lot of female members, and we're always trying to educate ourselves and position ourselves. We take classes with Dairy Promotion. We've got ag agency classes on manure management. We have to have so many credits of that every year. So around springtime, certainly on our farm, we'll have our annual manure management class, educating our employees on the do's and the don'ts and safety tips. We always try to go over safety stuff as well. So we work with many different agencies. Our members are actively working with NRCS and FSA, the Agency of Ag, and ANR on our farms, and keeping up with many different types of permits that we have to have. And that does get complicated. And we have a lot of members contact us about some of the complication between the Agency of Ag and ANR, and we're still trying to work through some of that. We would like for a cleaner process, in all honesty. I think it would just help us as businesses understand the path of getting the permits that are required. And we then add the layer of NRCS and FSA onto it. So you can understand working with multiple agencies can get a little confusing, but we do involve ourselves with many of those. We're also members of our watershed alliances. And, you've got the Watershed Alliance up in Senator Starr's territory. You just heard from the watershed down on the Connecticut River. I believe that was the group you were talking to. Franklin Grand Isle, you've got the Active Champlain Coalition.
They're
And in
coming
that-
in, they're coming in next, Amanda.
Oh, great. So you'll hear. And they offer many types of education and classes you can take and workshops out in the field. And our members are actively involved in those organizations. We also participate. Our members are members of the fire departments and the ambulance departments. We are also members of the school boards and select boards and local zoning committees. I think that's a piece that maybe your counterparts in other sectors of government don't understand, that the fabric of the rural community began on farming and agriculture, and it continues in many ways. The fabric of this rural community is based on agriculture, and dairy in Vermont is the leader of that. And our young generation are taking our spots, and they're fulfilling their civic duties. And so it's something that I think our members are very proud of, but we don't talk a lot about because it's just such a natural part of who we are as Vermonters. In addition, we are taking part in programs that you will hear, the Dairy Risk Program. We are forward contracting milk pricing. Right now, there's a little bit of a bump up in our milk price, which is exciting, but not sustainable. But so we have farmers who are trying to capitalize on that and book some of their milk prices out a little further out. We've got programs as the crop insurance, which insure our crops in case we have some failure and yields don't meet our expectations. We are constantly navigating the new conversations, which I'm sure you'll hear a lot about this session, climate change. And we've got a lot of climate action committee recommendations and things that involve my sector. But in fact, we've been working on this for 15 years, 20 years. We've been working on climate change. We've been actively pursuing less carbon on our farms by implementing the methane digesters. Vermont, several years ago, had the most methane digesters per capita in any other state. Very proud of that. It's kind of taken a halt right now. COVID threw a wrench in things, but we're always looking at what is our footprint. We are making more milk, which some may seem as a negative thing, but it's taking less carbon than it ever has before. And we're very proud of that. We're very active in developing technology. We have many farms who are implementing some pilot programs and navigating different products that might even lower our methane input just by what we feed our cows. But then we have the technology advancement, trying out new implements on our lands and our soils. These are all things that our members have been actively working on. In addition, we've got a number of members, such as my farm, where we're transitioning to the next generation. And I believe Shannon's farm is the same way. We've got an active next generation excited to take over. In fact, I'm zooming in from Florida. And my sons are on the farm and working through this cold, negative below weather and the snowstorm. And doing a great job. They are going to be our partners this year officially, and in 5 years we'll have the controlling interest. We hope. We're actively working with many people in that. There's a team that we have to employ, and it's exciting. And they have new ideas and they have new thoughts of how to manage the farm even better than us. And we like to think that we did a little better than our parents, right? So there's a little sense of pride. We have constantly brought in hundreds of thousands of jobs into the state from when we farm and the work we have on our farm to the supports that come in, the vendors, the stores that support us, even the grocery stores. In my community, if it wasn't for our dairy farms, we would be out 300 jobs probably in our little community, and our grocery stores would certainly feel that. The dentist office, the doctor's office. So we're really proud of what we bring again into the rural community. And that is also conserving hundreds of thousands of acres that the state program, Vermont Land Trust, has assisted in. But without farming, without dairy farming, without agriculture, what would those acres be used for? Our members own a large chunk of that. I don't have the exact data set, but they own quite a bit of that land that's been conserved. And that's going to be passed to the next generation to do the same thing. So that's a little overview of what our members are doing. What we've been doing since COVID hit is really just trying to function. I'll be quite honest. We have had so many protocols. I can't even tell you how many protocols we've had for our employees. We are constantly updating the protocols. We are testing our employees. We are masking our employees. We are bringing in UVM extension medical staff to help with that. Where, it's not anything that I would have ever imagined doing, as any employer probably in Vermont has thought about, but we are doing that on our dairy farms. We are also, trying to continue to provide the jobs and keep people working. And supplying food in a time when people are very concerned with, shortages and food security. We are providing that food. We are part of the food network. And I think there will be really interesting discussions on how we can capture more of that for Vermonters and keep it for Vermonters. I think that will be an interesting discussion. During COVID, we found our grain prices soaring. We found our milk production being capped at a certain level, and that's increased the cost. And in fact, has put some banking, you're funded on how much each cow is going to make. And so when the cooperative says you can only make X amount, that puts some farms in a little bit of a tougher spot to fulfill their duties that they have for their bank. It certainly puts a crunch on the family members that are running that farm on how much they make and what they can support their families on. So it's been a tenuous 2 years dealing with COVID and our fuel cost. And Bill's going to get into a little bit more of that, but it's been a wild ride. But with dairy farming, I feel, and I hope you feel the same, we're very savvy to addressing issues as they come up and finding a fix. It may not be a great fix sometimes, but duct tape on a dairy farm can go a long way. And I feel like through COVID, we've used a lot of duct tape. And now we're trying to look at what happens after COVID. How do we get and continue the path that we were all set for the sustainability that everybody wants. And so we appreciate your committee and each of you to help in this conversation. We look forward to working more on specifics with you that you'll hear about as a session unveils, and would love an opportunity at any time to answer any questions on the dairy sector as they come up. So if anybody had questions, I'm open, or we can do that at the end after each member has a chance to speak.
Yeah. Well, we can move on to Shannon and Bill, and then open it up to questions overall. So that would be good. Who would you like to be up next, Amanda?
Bill's unmuted, so I think he's ready to go. Are you ready, Bill?
I guess I'm ready.
Morning, Bill.
Good morning, everybody. Well, Amanda, that was a good rundown on what we do. And, we're involved in so many things, it's hard to really keep a list of what you do. And you do things that you don't even recognize until you're doing them sometimes. But one of the things that I'd like to recognize this morning is a new truck, for example, for a farm is they were $140,000 and they're now $185,000. So if you look at that and you look at the cost of fertilizer doubling and you look at the price of fuel gone up to the point where that it's pretty hard to buy a trailer load of fuel these days, you have to start thinking along the lines of what's Vermont going to look like if this COVID thing lasts and we don't come out of it the way that we hope to. We don't come out of it with any sense of viability for agriculture. And if we can't do that here, who's going to feed us, and where's our tax base going to come from, and all that sort of thing. I mean, we've seen the rural community across this country really take a big hit in the last 30 years. And that's because agriculture has changed, and dairies are confined to some areas, and less cows, more milk. But it all comes down to the fact that, you know, you can do things for quite a long time, but the federal government is so slow to move. And when they do, sometimes they don't move in a direction that's very appealing to somebody that's hoping for a better way of paying the farmer. And so it puts a burden on our legislative body. And in a small state like Vermont, we have to recognize all of that, but we also have to recognize that there's some animosity associated with that. How can these farms have all this big equipment and say they don't have any money? And that's a difficult thing. But this ARPA money, this act for you know, the ARPA, Recovery Plan Act. I've been working on that funding for our farm, and been talking with Yankee Farm Credit for the past, well, better than 3 weeks now. And we're not getting too far along. And they seem to think that there's something there for us, but on the other hand, it doesn't seem to come to fruition, and it's a frustrating thing. Things get complicated to the point where they're not accessible to the farmer, and it takes effort beyond what's reasonable to access it. And we still have to maintain everything. Just maintenance alone on the milk checks that we've been getting over the past few years is quite a chore to keep up with everything. And now you have availability of parts or even availability of equipment, like a new feed mixer, for example, for a truck. With a truck and a feed mixer, you're talking about $280,000. How do you do that? But you can do it if you could get paid right in the first place. It would be a lot easier to do, but you can still manage to do it somehow. The fact is, the world milk supply is contracting. Oceania, which is New Zealand and Australia, are down some percentage points. The European Union is down. The United States is down. All of the major dairy producing countries are down on milk, except for there's one or two that are up just a bit, like Argentina is up a little bit. But I don't think they make quite 30 billion pounds a year, and we would make about 220 billion pounds. But the point is, you have to buy all of those pieces of equipment, even if they're not planned, because if you have a failure, you still have to keep going. And I'm a little dismayed over the fact that ARPA money was designed to access in the way that it was. It's holding up money for a lot of us that we could use, and I guess that's my focus today. If there's something that we can do, and I know we've done this before, Senator, if there's something we can do to help expedite that, let us know. We could certainly use that money. And You know, the other thing is, I know that it's cold right now, but it won't be too long before we have to buy seed. And you get your good deal on seed if you buy early. So that money would be, it seems to grow in importance every time I think about it. So if there's any way to do anything that we can help you with, I'm sure every one of us would be interested in helping you.
Yeah, we can get into what's happening with that. We'll have Shannon on first, and then we'll go back to questions. And we are working on that, but we'll thank you, Bill, and we'll welcome Shannon up next.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Bill. I just want to say thank you all for having us to expand sort of on what Amanda and Bill, they sort of talked about the nuts and bolts. I spent 3 days in December and 3 days in January glued to a trial. And one of the things that we've all agreed on is that the Right to Farm Act needs to be worked on. And I know Corey Parent has introduced one, and you know, we need to tighten that up. It's disturbing that somebody can buy a piece of land in an agricultural district that was agriculture and can sue their neighbor because they don't like what they're doing. And we're trying to do the right things. And we feel like if we're doing what the law says we're doing, we should be protected. And so we're hoping that this year we can really sort of push forward changes in the Right to Farm Act. And I didn't know if you guys had feelings on that. At least me, having watched the whole trial, just worried about what comes next. You know, if people are expanding, there's houses going up around us. They're buying what was formerly farms that have gone out of business and putting up housing units on them faster than we can change to make everybody happy. So I guess bringing that up is, you know, our concern is that we want to make sure that as myself and Amanda, as we're looking at transitioning the farm to our kids, nieces and nephews, that there's something here for them, that they aren't fighting an uphill battle for their generation. They're obviously smarter than us. They have more technology. They've done the schooling. They do the classes with us. So, you know, I guess looking forward, I guess my feeling is, are we going to push forward the Right to Farm this year in the legislature? And if so, what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, are you all set?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
I'm not a good speaker.
Well, thank you very much. Brian?
Well, you can certainly go. I'll yield to you, Mr. Chair, first, if you like.
No, that's fine.
All right. So I just have a question for each of our guests. I wanted to know from Amanda, because we're always talking about the help that the state can provide to transition to the next generation, whether you were able to avail yourself of any of that and how it went. And then I wanted to ask Bill about specific roadblocks regarding the ARPA money that we might be able to work on. And then certainly I want to hear more from Shannon about Corey's bill, the Right to Farm. So those are my questions. So Amanda, if I could start with you, did we help you or have we helped with the transition?
You know, this committee has always been super helpful. Let me just say that. And I do believe, and I do see a lot of classes out there for people to transition their farms. However, we work actively with our financial institution, and we have a consultant that's independent that works. So we've really kind of done that with that avenue. But certainly I see a lot of classes advertised. UVM Extension does a good job, as far as I know, of presenting those classes. And so, you know, I guess I don't have information. I just know I do see that advertised a lot. And if I could just weigh in a little bit on the ARPA and the farm, Right to Farm, and before you go to the others, is we too are challenged with accessing that funding, and we recognize the committee and Senator Starr have been actively working behind the scenes. We're very appreciative. But that money would help implement for us, because we have, bills to pay. We can't invest in some of the new technology that would help with some of the soil work we want to do and phosphorus reduction. There's just avenues that money could help us with that we're actively putting on hold. A manure injection system, just because the equity that we would normally borrow against to do that, we've used up in just our payables. So, if we could access that money, and certainly there is a very direct correlation to our cost increasing per COVID related, totally COVID related. It's not just normal inflation. And that argument could be made. We just got to look at the right format to make the argument. And seconding Shannon on the right to farm, Senator Parent is my senator in my area. And I was happy to work with him and excited that he put this bill together. And really it's for the reasons Shannon said, is that as we continue to invest more of our equity in, sustainable soil work and technology and equipment to do the right kinds of jobs, and we follow the many different permits that we have to follow, we would like some surety from the state that there is something on the books for modern farm. I'd like to call it modern farming. There is a Right to Farm Act currently on the books, but technology has changed. The way we farm has changed with a whole conversation around climate change. That has forced us to change. Weather patterns have changed. So it's really to kind of support our efforts, and the results we have gotten by our efforts are a report cards from EPA that they see the results of what we're doing. So that's really why we wanted the Right to Farm Act to be strengthened. And again, I'll yield the floor to Bill to further your questions. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Amanda.
Senator Collmore, one of the things that act, the way that it's written is it says that you have to have a net loss even after you've recognized your federal monies that were funneled in during the COVID process last year. And you have to still show a net loss. That knocks a number of the farms out. The thing was the rules for application were written by I think it was an auditor, but it's so stringent that most of the farms aren't able to access that money. I don't know of anybody that's accessed it, but I've heard that there are 4 or 5 that have. Specifically, I have it written down at the office, but I probably can't go into the detail that you need to know. But that discussion was Senator Starr was on that call with Joan Goldstein, and that got pretty detailed, and they're supposed to be looking into that. And Bob, did you hear anything more from them as of today? Have you heard from them?
You're muted, Bobby.
I talked with Joan at length maybe 2 weeks ago, and they are presenting a rewrite of the rules and regs to our Economic Development Committee in the Senate, and I would expect they already have those. And you asked how you might be able to help. I think the most help that you could give is have your financial people call into the committee and express why there's the present rules or the present application is messed up. The auditor's a good guy, but he shouldn't be telling our Economic Development Committee how to write up applications and what they should be asking for. I think the people at ACCD are very upset and concerned because they can't get that money out the door. I mean, it's like $10 million that's sitting there, and they've loaned out maybe 2 or 1. I mean, it's no money at all has gone out the door because of the way, and I don't enjoy saying this, but the way our Economic Development Committee set that program up, made it way, way too stringent. And that's what we're trying to correct at the present time.
So
make-
Bill, I just wanted to make sure that I understood that it was a state situation that we could do something about and not
Oh,
something that came
yeah.
from the feds. From what we were led to believe, there were 2 issues. One of them was the guidelines that made people either eligible or ineligible to access. And the second was the application and the difficulty that some farmers experienced in just filling it out. Not everybody has the resources that others have in terms of being able to sit down at a computer on their kitchen table and get the thing done properly. So as far as I know, this committee is interested in working on both of those issues to as Bobby said, there's money sitting somewhere in the bank that we wanted to have go to the farmers, and up to this point, we haven't had much success.
Well, I've been working with Farm Credit. It's Farm Credit East now. It was Yankee Farm Credit, but now it's Farm Credit East. And Joanna Lidback is a farmer, and she was also with Yankee Farm Credit, and she's filled out applications for farms, and she said that it's difficult to fill out and get a positive response on. So
Well,
if somebody that works in the money business for a living, that's also a farmer, has that kind of difficulty, it's not just a matter of the farms having the tools to do it. It's the fact is it was complicated to a point where that it thwarts the effort before you even begin.
Yep.
Yeah, we've had both David Lane and Joanna, and they're both onto this big time. So they're helping to rewrite that over in economic development so it'll work.
So what committee would you want us to call?
You're muted again, Bobby. I think it's going to say economic development, but.
Yeah.
Oh, back.
My wife isn't here, and I was trying to shut, but I guess to shut that off, I have to shut you off. But it's Michael Sorokin's the chair, Bill. They're in the next room beyond ours when we're in the State House, right there in that hallway. And
Okay.
I think Chris, are you on? Because I think he was going to talk with Michael as well.
Yeah, I haven't connected yet, but and I do think it would be have a big impact if Bill and others did connect directly with them, and it remains on my list of something to do this week.
Bill and Amanda, Randy's on that committee, so I can drop a note to him, but if you guys also reach out to Randy, that'll be helpful.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
On the right to farm, we haven't taken that up yet, Shannon, but we do have that bill, I believe, don't we? Or did that go
It went to
judiciary?
judiciary, Bobby. If we could get it reassigned to us, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll have to, that came in the other day, and I don't know for what reason, but it went to Judiciary, Senator Sears Committee. But I'll talk with him and see if he'll send it to us first, and then he can look at it after we deal with that issue. But I know the old right to farm law, it's got to be 15 or 20 years old. And it certainly, is time to review that and update those rules and regulations to be more up to date with what's transpiring on our farms now. So other questions or concerns from any of our guests? I don't know if we answered all your questions or not. Brian?
Thank you, Bobby. I just maybe get a feedback on the bill that we're proposing involving the USDA DMC, the milk or the risk management coverage. How you folks are seeing that? I don't know if you've been following along. We started off with both the DMC and then the other two programs that were administered by USDA. And we pretty much, I think, got to the point where we're only going to talk about the DMC program and not the other two at a tier 1 level. And I didn't know whether you folks saw great benefit, moderate benefit, or really isn't going to help too much.
Well, there is some benefit, no question. I think you're wise not to do the dairy RP also, because you'd end up spending a pretty good amount of money on that. That's a moving target, and that would be hard to get a handle on and make it productive for the farm and for the state, feasible for the state. The DMC is more of a fixed program, and if you take a farm that makes 25 million pounds of milk, you're only insured up to 5 million pounds at the higher level, and it only pays generally at the higher level. So as your margin comes down, if you come below a $9.50 margin or a $9 down, as it continues down, whatever, but you're only going to see that in the higher margin level. And so if you're buying it at a lower level, really you're spending money for nothing, because you're probably not going to get anything out of it.
Yeah, we've been chatting about the is it DLC?
DMC.
Yeah, that the price keeps moving, and we couldn't figure out any way to figure out how much money to put in. Whereas with the DMC, we know, like you guys that are on this morning, you'd all get paid for that first 5 million.
Right.
And we've been talking about doing just the tier 1. So it'd be at the 950 level, the difference. And we, of course, we know how many farms we have, and we know how many are in that go above the 5 million, and we can pretty well figure it out to what it's going to cost. And we have talked with appropriations, and I think we're in pretty good shape to, on our side especially, to get the tier 1 DMC payment in the supplemental budget. So it would be good for this year, and that would pay you guys. I think we figured out about the big guys about $7,500 at the present rate. I don't know. The other thing I think we may want to fool with is the timing on that to figure out, you know, when you want to sign up and because I think you have a choice of when you sign up for that. And yeah, we may want to talk a little bit about timing and that, because like you said, I think, Bill, that the price of milk's going up a little bit right now. Well, that may all fall right into the manure pit come June or July. And, you know, we don't know where that's gonna go, so. But
Well,
I think it's gonna cost us three point some million to pay the premium on that. And it would save farmers, if they're signing up, it would save them immediately the 15 cents that they'd have to pay if they did sign up. Plus, it would pay you back if the feed and milk prices got too far apart.
right. So that would be good, and that would be appreciated. The dairy RP, I'll tell you the way I look at it. For example, you're buying futures, you're buying milk futures, and you're buying a floor. So in other words, if you can buy a floor under class 3 and class 4 milk for something above your cost of production for a reasonable cost per hundredweight, you know, right now, if you go too far out, you'll be paying 50 cents per hundredweight for that floor. If you get closer to the time period, you'll be down maybe in the 20 or 18 or 14 cent range. So in other words, the nearer future is more predictable for the guy that's doing the gambling. So they lower the price to pull you in. But here's what the deal is. If you look at the world stage right now, milk's contracting. So there's a demand for a product, which makes the price of milk go up per hundredweight. But you feel like, well, gee, I'm not going to spend a lot of money on buying a floor under this. But then you look at Russia all lined up on the border of Ukraine, looking at Joe Biden, seeing what we're going to do and what they're going to do. When you look at the hypersonic missiles coming out of China and North Korea, and you say, it only takes one deal here and the whole thing goes away. And now we're back below the cost of production in an economy where we should have been making money. And we have had that happen to us more than once.
Oh, man.
So you spend that money on those floors so that you can stay in the game, basically. Even if you don't have the money to spend, you can't afford not to spend it.
It's pretty hard though, Bill, to spend. I've tried that, spending money that I didn't have. And the only one that won on that whole deal was my banker.
Yeah. No, but it's doable. And the way you have to look at it so that you can discipline yourself is that I know it looks like it's a sure bet right now, but if one of these variables comes into play, we're upside down. So you better insure it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying there.
The other thing, maybe Shannon can fill us in if she's heard anything about this. Earlier, we had people in and they were talking about a milk processing plant possibly being built in the Middlebury area that would take quite a lot of milk, and they would be making a product that would be exported to foreign countries. And have you heard anything, Shannon, about that down your way?
Nope, I have not heard anything gossip or otherwise about that down my way. So I don't know who's talking about it, but not our group of people.
Yeah. Well, I was surprised to hear that this morning because when we were on the task force this summer, trying to help dairy, we talked about a new plan of some type to take some of this milk to tighten the market up and Agrimart or DFA, Cabot. Cabot's the only one that said they could probably use more processing of cheddar cheese up in or modernize their plant because they said they completely sell out of cheddar. And so, but we didn't hear anything from anybody about somebody interested in building a processing plant down in Middlebury. So that's something, that we should pay attention to, and there is money to help expand stuff like that at ACCD. Any other questions? We got your watershed, or Amanda and Bill's watershed group coming on board here and at 10, 11, 15. So if you guys have the time, or if you want to stay on, you're certainly free to be with us. And if anything comes up that you think we should know about, please let us get hold of us individually, or call Linda and we'll set a meeting up for you. Or if you want to get your Schuldice and Associates folks to come in, tell them they're, more than welcome to be with us anytime.
So I just want to finish up by thanking this committee. We enjoy working with you and to protect our landscape and agriculture in Vermont, and also offer up, if there's an appropriate time, Senator Starr, that would help the Right to Farm and Senator Parent and the rest of the committee to testify on that. I would suggest we bring in the next generation that this would really affect more. And I think they would have a very compelling story to members outside your committee. I know you guys are sympathetic and you understand, but we appreciate opportunity to bring those farmers in to have that conversation when it's fitting.
Well, I would certainly like that, because it'd be great to hear from that new crew. And I was going to mention, Amanda, when you were talking earlier, sorry to steal a little of your time, Larry, but when you were talking about how farmers serve on select boards and school boards and this organization and that, you never mentioned even taking part in the Olympic Games, some farm families. So, but anyways, thanks again for participating, and again, contact us anytime that you feel we can be helpful.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, good morning, Larry. Sorry we're running a whisker late, but we certainly have time to hear from you guys. We that damn that's a steady thing. But anyways, earlier this morning, we had the people in from the Champlain Valley Watershed Group and the Windsor County area in. And so it's good to have you folks in. We know you do a lot of good things, and so it'd be great to hear from you and how things are going.
Well, good morning, Senator Starr. Appreciate it. I'm actually the vice chair and Scott's the chair, so I'll let him take the lead on this. We do have one other member, Wayne Fisk, that hopefully will be joining us here shortly there.
Yeah, any way you wanna set it up, so Scott gonna lead off?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're open to conversation and see where things go. But we did meet last night with some things to bring up. I'll start with
Yeah.
that. So there was a letter from the CLF addressed to the Agency of Ag that was interested in stricter RAPs. So we had some thoughts on where we stood with that letter, and there might be more to follow up. I wouldn't be surprised. We talked a little about the CAFO regulations between the Agency of Ag and ANR and how that was going. That was a little while ago and it's been pretty quiet as of late, but that was an issue that was raised this fall. There was a lot of discussion around it. I've been part of the Payment for Ecosystem Services Working Group. So we've had some work that we've been doing regarding that topic. So we're open to talking about that. We wanted to talk a little bit about the agency and their handling of on-farm inspections. Larry was going to touch base on that. We talked about some of the programs, perhaps increasing the FAP cap. I think it's at 8,000 right now. And we wanted to add nitrogen inhibitors as a possible funding tool within that program.
What was that again, Scott? What program?
The Farm Agronomic Practice Grants. Farmers
Oh,
are applying for conservation practices. There's an $8,000 cap, which is fairly limiting with today's dollar. We wanted to hear from you to see what work had been done on milk pricing that impacts the farms and how we handle environmental issues and how much funding we need to offset milk price.
Yeah. Well, would you want to tell us what you thought about your group did about the reopening the RAPs? I don't think we haven't really chatted that much about that, but what we have talked about is, we just got going with our present RAPs and haven't been too encouraged to open that back up again right away. And so let us, what did your group have to say about that?
Pretty much what you just said. No one wants to go there. Like we're just getting a handle on this set where there's an understanding on what needs to be done, and we've got work in place to meet the RAPs. And people are exceeding the RAPs on a lot of fields and a lot of farms, so we're not sure why there's pressure to make them stricter. I think that letter, they said that the RAPs didn't address climate change. It was more for status quo. But I don't know if we've reached a point that's significantly higher. I mean, they were written after Irene, so we had a pretty good indicator there. So I feel like it's just a lot of political pressure more than it is substantiated reasoning.
Yeah.
Larry can follow up on what I just said.
Did you have anything to add to that, Larry, or?
No, I mean, basically, like Scott said, farmers are going ahead on these, and it's hard to try to basically trip them up and say, you're doing a good job, but I think they're doing a great job. The direction is going a really good direction, and to put more pressure on at this point, by changing a slew of things, you're gonna have a lot of negative reaction in my opinion. But you're seeing, I mean, you know, you're seeing a lot more green cornfields here in the fall now, so,
Oh, yeah.
you know, there's a lot of positive stuff going on and, you know, just carbon sequestering and, you know, we're having a big impact there and there's markets being created for that. So I think the way it's going right now, I think you need to go a few more years before you need to really revamp everything.
Yeah.
For the
Brian,
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Collmore.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So Larry and Scott, did CLF come up with any specific issues or events or something that happened that made them feel that the current RAPs were not working well? I'm just trying to find a reason for their encouragement to reopen them.
I haven't read the letter as of late. I'd have to go back to the letter. It was sent to us by Laura DiPietro if you guys wanted copies of it. I think it was just that it didn't address for climate change.
Okay. So nothing
Yeah,
specific that happened. Okay.
Well, I think they basically were saying, we didn't see it up here in northern Vermont, but I guess southern Vermont got hammered with a lot of rain this past year. And that's, I think, one of the things that they mentioned. Well, we were on the other side. We were really dry up here. So,
Yeah. And I read that letter and I thought it was a full employment type letter. They,
I didn't
that, yeah, if work slows down, which it doesn't in our committee, but if it does, then we draft up bills to work on. So it's full employment, so we won't get shuttled off to some other committee. But anyways,
Mr. Chair, could I just jump in?
yeah,
Sorry, I can't be on camera, everybody, but you may have seen that I put in a bill that sort of reflects that letter. And I just want to be clear that I thought it was an important discussion to have, not necessarily that I'm convinced it should become law. But part of the motivation, as I understand it, was that the Agency of Ag had started making some proposed changes to the rules. And there was generally confusion, I believe, about what they were trying to do. And it was hard to get clarity on what they were proposing. And so from where I sit, it was just important to bring the agency in and kind of uncover what it is that's been going on, what people are thinking. So I just wanted to make sure that you had that input from me.
well, that's good. So it's full employment for us then as legislators.
Yeah, I could do with a little less employment myself, but yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Anthony?
Yeah, just along those same lines, as you probably are aware, there's been this controversy down in Addison County, somewhere, I forget exactly where people have been, some neighbors are suing the farmers, I think is the way it's going. And in that case, the farmers, my understanding of the argument they're making, if the farmers themselves have said that their practices are okay, the problem, according to the witnesses that the farmers brought on, was that climate change was responsible for the added pollution because of the added weather changes and the rain. So in that case, the farmers are actually making the argument that it's climate change and not their practices. So it's just a conversation that needs to happen. I mean, because it's not going to go away. So I don't think people should necessarily see it as added pressure. It's more just saying, we're not sure what's going on here with the climate. So maybe we should consider that as we think about where we're going in the future.
Yeah, that was George, well,
Yeah, I'm not trying to say his last name, their last name. There are three brothers who are running the
yeah,
farm.
Baltimore or Baltimore or something like
Yeah.
that.
Vanderhouse.
Yeah,
Austinville.
so the ecosystems, you brought that up, I think, Scott. I expect that we'll fully fund that program and probably push it a little harder because it seems to be working from our point of view. Helping with cover cropping and other soil enhancements. And would you want to comment on your opinion on how that is working?
Yeah. I think our initial goal was to not have it be a government funded program. But we needed the help from government to get it going. So my work in the working group is definitely moving towards a government funded program to present to the legislature. I feel like we're narrowing down the scope of what that looks like. And it will be a lot of talk about modeling versus on-field metrics and how that's going to be measured. And I think there's headway there, which is looking more towards like a soil health test, and it's going to be based on that. They're trying to work numbers to see what's reasonable, what's not reasonable. So there's a lot of discussion going on about that right now. I think I thought within the FWAs, we'd still like to get it into the public sector at some point somehow. But the big question is who's going to fund it? Is there actually a societal, like a value to society in it that they're willing to pay for? That question hasn't been really answered. And I'd say at this point, it's a no. People are more worried about how they're going to get their kids to school and get gas in their car. So I think that's where, once this working group comes out with a thing, we get a program in place, that's where some work's going to need to happen if we want to meet our original goal. But I think within the working group, as long as the core group of people stays with the group, we're good. If other people come into the group uneducated, we spend a lot of time re-educating them to get them up to speed, and we get the same questions over and over, which I've noticed in some of the meetings. So it's become a little more enjoyable to work with that core group. It was super slow at first, but now we've got enough work, and the group we hired to do the work is slowly answering our questions. I think within the group, we're very much everybody's getting educated, and at some point we need to get our heads together to narrow down what we're going to do and present. So
Yeah.
kind of where things are at.
Well, it sounds like, you're working at it and getting a handle on it. It's just taking time, and with COVID and not being able to meet together, and yeah, I understand where you are. Larry, did you want to say a few words about on-farm inspections?
Yeah, I just go back a minute there. You said fully funded ecosystems. Did you mean a fully funded FAP? The FAP practices?
Yeah, so that, you guys can apply and not get turned down because they keep running out of money. So
Sorry.
Yes.
You go ahead.
Yes,
Larry.
just a quick point on that. This year, you know that like nitrogen cost is going to be doubled.
Yeah.
And there's inhibitors that you can put on the nitrogen to allow it to stay in the soils rather than leaching away or going up in the environment and stuff. But it's an added cost on top of that. So if this FAP program could extend to add something like that into it, that would be acceptable practices. I think you see more farmers utilizing that. And the cap is, it was 5,000, now it's 8,000. It's still, I mean, when your fertilizer cost is going to double this coming year, that's not a lot of money you're talking about there.
No.
And for it to be capped, I'm kind of a little, I take my FWA hat off and talk as a farmer. For me, it's it irritates me a little bit because we're two farms, but one LFO permit. So we cap out at $8,000. That's not a lot of acres when you do one specific practice. So there's a little limitation here. I think, we're looking, to me, it's like, we want to cover acres regardless of who the ownership is of the acres, to have these practices done on acres throughout the state. But that's just a couple points that I had to add, but I think the nitrogen inhibitors are, a huge factor that, you're always sitting there, oh, should I use it today or shouldn't I use it? But if you're gonna get some payment back from it, it's gonna be huge this year.
And why do you only get paid for one farm? Is it because your milk all comes from just one farm, or?
No, it made a lot more sense for us to do one LFO rather than two LFOs, because you're commingling feeds and manures from different areas and maybe near one farm or the other. It made a lot more sense to be one LFO, because we're taxed two different ownerships on two different farms. And it's just one of those things I've asked, and so I'm blue in the face. I'm like, that's not quite right. It should be two farms, but whatever, but the caps are always been a little issue for me because I'm a large farm. It always affects me, but as an environment, looking at an environmental aspect, it's acres that should be, looking at, try to get covered, because we'll do almost 100% of cover cropping regardless if we get paid or not, because I see the benefits on it. Other farms may not. They may say, well, I'm only getting paid for this amount, so I'm only going to do a third of my acres because I don't cap out the rest. Things like that.
So that on the agronomic practices, it caps at 8. What should that be at 10? Would that be helpful, or?
I definitely know it'll be utilized if it, gets increased $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, whatever it may be. I mean, if you look at the pool of money that went out into this program, even though the cap went up, it probably hasn't changed much because you've lost applicants because farmers have gone out of business. So you have less applicants that you may have had 5-10 years ago. I don't know what that number is, but it's just my thought.
Yeah, well, we'll put that on to talk with the agency, in regards to, and how that is, how that's being funded and how it's working, and if there's money left or not. So, go ahead.
Could I just, because one other practice is like a manure injection. I think that's covered under FAPs. You got a year like this where your fertilizer is going to be doubled, and if a farmer had the ability to inject it into their grass ground, they're going to cut back on fertilizer because it's just going to cost so much. But if there's some incentive through an FAP program to pay a little bit more, now you're also going to get the manure inserted into the ground rather than on top of the surface, which would help some of this climate change with, these heavy rainfalls that may happen 3 days after a practice gets done. It may be okay to spread it because, the weather's great today, tomorrow, but if you just put it on the top of the ground, on the grass ground, and you get 2 inches of rain 4 days from now, you're going to have some nutrients leaving.
Yeah, I know Red Shapit does injection, and he's done this for a few years. His soil tests are really coming back great, where he can cut way down on his commercial fertilizer from that manure being injected into the soil. So up here it really works. I don't know if it works as good on all farms, but it's certainly working well on his farm.
I just think it's a great opportunity right now in a year like this. Farmers may have not looked at it so much in the past, but you double their fertilizer bill for urea, and all of a sudden you go a little incentive of a manure injection, you're going to get a positive on the environment also, not just their needs for the crop.
Yeah. any questions from any committee members? If you do have, just jump in. You asked a little question about milk pricing and if we were attempting to do anything in regards to that. We have had discussions and as far as helping or paying the insurance premium for farms for tier 1 on the DMC program. And we're working on that. Of course, that's on the, the first 5 million pounds. So some of you larger guys would, you'd reap a benefit hopefully on the first 5 million. But it's for tier 1. We're trying to convince our colleagues to pay that insurance premium, which would save you that 15 cents up front stuff. So that we're working on that, as well as a host of other things. I don't know. Do you have any other questions on the stuff we talked about so far?
How's the local marketing going? Heather was giving us some stats last night that 78% of our milk was coming back and being utilized. Is that a result of some of the work that's been done
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know if it's 78%, but it's well above 70. It's actually in the last 20 years, it's flipped right completely over. We used to send 85% of our milk out of state and retain 15 or so here. Now, it's all being used here, either in ice cream, yogurt, cheeses, powder. And so our findings are pretty solid that most of our, or the bulk of our milk's being used right here at home. And I don't know if you guys were on earlier, but earlier today, I don't know if it was the watershed. No, it was the Champlain Valley Watershed Group was saying that somebody in the Middlebury area, they're talking with them in regards to building a new milk processing plant that would make a product, which they didn't say what it is, but they would manufacture a new product from milk and most of that product would be exported out of the country. It would be exported to foreign countries. So, that percentage that we're shipping could even go up less or go down more, and our home utilization would pick up even more if we had another plan online. So, that was good news that somebody's at least talking about building a new facility. So, that's all, where we are. We're also talking a little about whether or not we could put a state order in place that there's so much of our milk that's staying home anyways. Could we raise a little money by having a state order on that milk that's staying home, that we could set up a system where it would pay you guys more money? Because milk pricing has been terrible now for often on most of the time, off once in a while for what, the last 5 years. And so we're working on that some too. Wayne, did you have some comments that you wanted to give us this morning? We
Well-
didn't get to you and want to give you an opportunity to be heard.
I had a question on the milk commission, I guess, what that's doing for us. You touched on it a little bit with the insurance, but, I know in Maine, they seem to give the farmers a little bit of, encouragement and a little bit of money. Didn't know if the state of Vermont could do the same thing for the farmers. And, I also had a question on, there's a need for slaughterhouses in Vermont. There's only 3 that are operating. We transferred over to beef from dairy, and we're having trouble getting our beef slaughtered. Didn't know if there's something down the pike that could help that situation out.
Over, I don't know where to start with your answers or part answers. Over in Maine, they utilize 100% of their milk produced within the state. If they may export a little bit, but they import some too. But say if they produced 10 million pounds, they utilized 10 million pounds in Maine. So what they did is they put an assessment on the retailers, I believe it was, and of so many cents a hundredweight, and that money comes into the state treasury, and then they pay it back out to the dairy farmers. And it works good because they're 100% utilization. And then the other good thing that they have is they have New Hampshire on one side, they have Canada to the north, and they have the Atlantic Ocean to the east. So it's hard to get there from anywhere with more milk. And so they're pretty good. We're pretty good as far as the north and in the east, because New Hampshire isn't going to send much milk over. And Mass isn't going to send much north, but New York could send a bunch of milk into Vermont. So we've got that issue to work out. But if we get a state order in place that doesn't disrupt the marketplace, because we don't want to chase anyone away, we could probably have a program similar to what Maine has. It might not be quite as much of a payment as they make. And well, the other thing that happens in Maine, it all depends on the cost of production and the price they're being paid. If they run out of money that's sent in, then the general fund kicks it in right out of the state general fund. And I don't think we would get away with that here in Vermont, having the general fund pay it. But anyways, that's where we are on the milk pricing. And I think you heard, Wayne, that we're working on the DMC program.
Yep.
And we would cover that, the cost of signing up for that, up to the tier 1 cap of 5 million pounds. And I think it come out somewheres, if you're at the top and you cap out, it would be roughly $7,500 a farm that it would cost cost us to pay that, that premium.
I would think, I was kind of good to hear last night that 75 or 78% of the milk is being utilized back in Vermont. I'm just thinking of all the money we're saving on transportation, the way the cost of fuel is and everything, and somehow that could be reflected back to the dairy farmer.
Yeah, well, that adds up to a lot. Plus, just think of the pollution how that's helped cut down our greenhouse gases and I doubt if the climate committee even talked about that. So no, there's some good things happening, I think, from the state and I don't know, if we'll be able to do it all, but hopefully we can do enough to make a difference for you guys that are working 7 days a week producing milk. Other questions for our panelists? Larry,
Yeah, we should go back to, we never finished the point about the inspector reviews. We were going to talk about a little bit, be it LFO, SFO, or MFO inspections. When they come onto the farm, I guess there's been, I was just hearing some members that are relatively some of the top farmers in the area. They felt there was some aggravated discussion going on and being accused of not doing something that they were doing. And so for myself, what I was suggesting, we kind of do it for some Slettman and Enosburg, and we got the ambulance thing and stuff. When there's issues going on like that, they come to your farm. The farmer should also have a form evaluating the performance of the inspector that comes, whether it's good or bad. Every time that visit occurs, feel that person from the ag department should have evaluation done and sent back to the ag department so that's also on the file. And they can assess the situation, because a lot of times, if somebody's aggravated, they get on the phone, they call, and where does that go? It might be just a phone call and it's never put in a file or anything. For myself, I had a great inspection this past year, but it's not been like that all the time. And it's just maybe 10 question form, quick jot down of some things, but it should be kind of required, I feel, every inspection. For LFOs, it's an annual one, so it's once a year for us, and the others they may be 3 years, or maybe it's just even a violation, because violations is a violation, but how does that person react with the farmer back and forth? That should be, to me, it should be somehow put in a file.
that, have you talked with any officials at the agency in regards to that suggestion, Larry?
But we just, with our meeting last night, it just came up to us last night, so we were just discussing it. And to me, it's a doable thing. I know farmers sometimes hate to fill out a form and send it back, but I think it's good communication both ways. Because who knows what's going on out there. But if there's actually it's documented right in front of the agency, then they can act on it. I mean, one time, a bad opinion of what the reaction was, maybe a one-time occurrence, or maybe it's happening several times, and but people don't always call or whatever. So, like I said, this past year, I had some new inspectors, and I had a great time. They should know that too. It's a great, great walkthrough. They should know, okay, the farmer felt this was a very positive one, or hey, there's some areas that need to be improved. I think it's just that communication needs to go back and forth, and It's just a simple, quick form. I think that could be done.
Yeah, well, I've never heard of, nobody's ever suggested that, but I think it's a good suggestion, Larry, and it's something that I would think the agency would want to know how, how their inspectors are doing and how well they're being received. And if there's a common occurrence happening with the same inspector and all the rest seem to be going along fine, then maybe there should be a visit.
Hey,
Oh, slaughterhouses, Wayne, you brought up.
Yeah,
Yeah, we put, do you remember, Brian, how much money we put into the agency to help slaughterhouses, update and modernize?
I want to say 500,000.
It was quite a lot of money. I
Maybe it
thought
was more.
at least 500, if not more. And we're going to be getting an evaluation of how that was used. And if it's something that was well received, I would think that we would enhance that in the 23 budget, because I know last year we had a lot of conversation and we added quite a lot of money to the agency's budget. It was federal money, but it's still spendable. That's a wonder. I'm sure we'll be reviewing that as we move forward, Wayne.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else from the committee or?
No, I just want to thank them for all they do up here. It's appreciated and we notice it, and seeing all the cover crops and all that stuff too in the winters has grown over the years is impressive. So keep up the good work and let us know how we can help.
Yeah, Larry.
yeah, maybe Scott can touch on it real quick there, but on our getting accepted for a working lands grant there, and possibly to redo some of our structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we applied and got accepted for a working lands grant to just go over how we operate and what our mission statement's going to be, if we want to change that or not. So we appreciate help to get that done.
Yeah, and I think they're up to, I think we've been talking about putting $10 million more into that particular program. So, if you can help any of your friends and neighbors, farmer friends and neighbors into applying, that'd be good, Scott.
Yep. It's a pretty open program too. It's open to a lot of creativity.
Yeah. No, that's worked pretty darn good. And for your information, there is at VHCB, they do have people there that they will assign if you're applying for a grant or need help filling out grant papers. They do have people available to assist you in achieving that. So that's right through Vermont Housing and Land Conservation over at VHCB. So, if you do need some assistance and stuff like that, they should be able to assist you. Any other questions? Larry?
We didn't really touch base on the pay for phosphorus program that just went in. but, just a few thoughts on that. I think Scott, you were gonna be, did you say you had a farm that was gonna be going in?
Yeah. No, I'm gonna sign up and probably one of my customers to see how it goes, try it out. It's definitely based on modeling, which I'm not a fan of. It's basically stock practices, and if the model doesn't include what you're doing, then you're not going to rank as high as you should. So there's issues I have with it personally, but I think it's a good run to try it and see where it goes. And then when the payment for ecosystem services rolls out, it's going to be a little bit of a different model. So we'll be able to compare the two and see how they interact and how they work. So it sounds like a fair amount of people are going to apply. It's definitely not geared to someone with a lot of fields like Larry, because the data input's pretty intense. So whoever signs up is going to need to be ready and prepared for that. And you're going to have to budget kind of based on what your farm looks like. It's also based on the TMDL.
Yeah.
So you got to know where you stand on the TMDL to know if it's going to be worth your time or not. So it takes a little bit of homework to figure that out. And also your management strategy, like it's pretty good for me. We don't have animals, so I have pretty much 100% control over how I handle phosphorus. So I'm probably going to do pretty well.
Well, that hopefully that program will help get phosphorus reduced. So as we move forward. Yeah. Well, if you guys run across anything, we work quite a lot with Heather Darby and hear from her quite a bit. And, I'm sure you guys deal with her at some point in time. So if you have, suggestions, if your watershed group wants to get back on, with any concerns or issues, feel free to contact us. And thanks a lot for being with us this morning. Certainly, we appreciate that and your time and all that. So thanks again, and try to stay warm. I guess tomorrow's going to be a nipper, but dress well. So,
Thank you.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, committee, well, it is noon, so we'll call it a morning. We've got O'Grady coming in tomorrow morning, trying to wrap up that licensing, paying for that insurance stuff, because we need to, if we're going to do that, we need to get that tightened up and down to approach. And I don't know about S-188 if we're going to be ready to move that out, or that's on the small licensed cannabis cultivation people. We'll be dealing with that tomorrow morning as well. So is there anything that I've missed that you wanted to get on the schedule? No, pretty good. Well, if you do have, anything to get on for next week, just let Linda or I know, and we'll get it on the schedule. Corey, you better go to work on your right to farm bill.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm on there too.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll try to get that from Sears, and then we can work on that. So
sounds good to me.
Pardon?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you